he is impervious to bullets. Like he can heal everything, but this death of the person he loved is still hurting him more than any bullet could. And yeah, that's the love.
Hello everyone, welcome to No Drama Just Movies. We are back with another video. This time we are reviewing not one, but two movies. First and foremost, we are reviewing none other, and you got it, than the remake of The Crow. This is The Crow 2024, starring Bill Skarsgård as Eric, as the Crow, and we will also be reviewing the 1994 classic version of The Crow, starring Brandon Lee in the main character role. However, this time it's going to be a little bit of a versus. We're going to be reviewing the original and then comparing that to the current remake of The Crow, which we literally just saw last week, and we only just saw the original version of The Crow yesterday. So we are No Drama Just Movies. My name is Cameron Kelly Smith. I am joined by my esteemed colleague drinking his tea, the one, the only,
Bill!
That's it. That's right. So let's get right into it. I mean, The Crow, this is something that we've always known has been a huge cult classic. It's been something that has been talked about for a long time. I'd actually never, ever watched it, the original that is, until yesterday. And I believe you're the same?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So we actually did it in probably the order that you wouldn't actually want to do it in.
Probably the worst order, yeah.
Yeah, we watched the remake of The Crow, the 2024 version last week. And then obviously watched the original yesterday. So let's actually first start. I want to first actually start with the original. What was your thoughts, especially after watching it after the remake? What was your initial thoughts of the original 1994 version of The Crow?
Just love, enjoyment. It was kind of awesome. It's a comic book film, isn't it? It's like a superhero film, essentially. It's just a very dark one. But yeah, I love the aesthetic. Like just how Alex Proyas, the director, did like this really dark city nod. And just how it looked, but also just the costume, obviously the just the grime and the grittiness, I think.
Yeah, it's fantastic, man. Like it's honestly fantastic. And I think the thing is as well, you mentioned that this is a superhero movie. I can't even lie to you, bro. I didn't even feel like I was watching a superhero movie. I felt that I didn't even know what I was watching, but I mean that in the best way possible. What I was watching was just a bundle of awesomeness. Like this movie, it's like a gothic horror style mixed with crime, mixed with action. And I didn't even know that The Crow actually was initially a graphic novel. I had no idea until recently. And it's phenomenal, man. Like it has that 90s flair to it as well, but it works really well. It's really well performed. Like, I was not aware of Brandon Lee, and we'll get to Brandon Lee later on in our review, but I wasn't aware of him besides, being, the iconic Bruce Lee's son. And I wasn't aware of his work. And he was phenomenal. Like this is really a touching movie. Like there's some amazing lines of dialogue. It's a story that really works. It really does pull on the heartstrings as well. Some really emotional scenes in here too. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. And I mean, those are obviously our initial thoughts of the original Crow. What was your initial thoughts of the remake?
My initial thoughts of the remake were it was slow. It was very, 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 very slow. Like I said, I thought the original was a superhero film and the remake wasn't. I think it was meant to be, or I would have thought it would have been, but it took forever for him to put the face mask on and become the Crow. Like it was just ages until the story really got going, I think, for me. So we're waiting, and then when he puts on the costume, it was actually quite enjoyable because just the violence was a little bit more than in the original, just like a little bit more creative for the kills. So I'm like, why couldn't you have done that earlier?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, if I'm being honest with you, the word that comes to mind with the remake is that it felt very soulless to me.
Hmm.
It didn't feel like there was. I never felt really emotionally invested in this movie at all. The only praise I would give it is, yeah, by the time that he does become, the crow, that whole scene, for example, where he's, walking up the staircase of the opera house and killing everyone, that felt really John Wick style. And
Yeah.
that was fun. That was brutal. It was really nice to see. I was really invested at that point. But I think this is the thing as well, going back to the original. One thing about the original that I think does a really good job at, from the very beginning of the movie to the end, is that it anchors you in this idea or this premise that you have someone here. I mean, I'll put it this way. At the very beginning of the movie, you have the voiceover where I believe it's Sarah, I think, giving the voiceover where she's
Yeah.
talking about, how, there was once, this idea that when somebody dies, a crow carries their soul to the afterlife. And that if, in those instances, if in an instance, for example, where someone's soul is being carried to the afterlife, there was deep sadness written within that person, or they didn't exactly go in the way they wanted to intended that, and that they wish that they could have intended that. The idea is that the soul would then bring the crow, excuse me, would bring that soul back to life to basically right those wrongs, to what caused them such sadness, so that way their soul can eventually rest. And that was such a beautiful opening because it really marries well with the story that we then see of this idea that you have somebody that is in love with this person. In this case, Eric is deeply in love with Shelly, and you see through the flashbacks and the little montage sequences, that these were two people that actually cared a lot for each other. And I think the one thing that is missing from the remake, easily missing from the remake, is that at no point did I ever feel that Eric and that Shelly were in love, or that they really had a relationship that I gave two damns about.
It's so fascinating that you say that because, like, the irony is that the remake spends a lot more time with
Yeah.
those two people before they are killed. Like, the
Mm.
original immediately, like, basically starts with them already dead, right?
Yeah.
So we don't actually see them together. We
Mm.
only see like the flashbacks. But I think it's in those flashbacks that we get the love. That it's just it hits differently when you have this guy, this Eric, basically Eric mourning this woman that he used to love. We get like how he feels about her, and I love that moment. I think when he like touches Albrecht or something, and he sees her
Yeah.
death, like her the last hour or so, 46
In the
minutes,
hospital. Yeah.
or hours of her life, and it knocks him over, man. It like really hurts him just to see that, and you
Mm.
feel the love in that, I think, in his reaction
Yeah.
to her being gone, and that the reaction to um like her death. And it's like yeah, I wrote down as well just this moment that knocks him over. He is impervious to bullets, like he can heal everything, but this death of the person he loved is still hurting him more than
Yeah.
any bullet could. And yeah, that's the love. And meanwhile, in the new one, we get like scenes of them just hanging out, and I'm like, I don't care.
That's the thing.
Not
I think
anymore.
that's the thing as well. Like, with the remake, the way that Eric and Shelley's relationship unfolds is that it just gives the vibes of a summer romance. Like, it
Hmm.
gives the vibes of like two people just having a fling that maybe
Yeah.
lasted a week or so. And it was a great time while it lasted. And then, on to the next. You never, like, even when she dies, like, I don't feel that this is somebody that Eric really cared about that much. And I think that's the thing. You mentioned, for example, in the original, that when you have the moments there where Eric is, well, the Brandon Lee version of Eric, where it's very, very important to point that out. That no offense to Bill Skarsgård, but that you see him reacting, and I think that's the thing. His performance is so powerful.
Hmm.
It really gave me Heath Ledger vibes in some of the best ways,
Okay.
like Heath
Yeah.
Ledger Joker vibes in more ways than one. But that's the thing. You don't even have to see him with Shelly. It's the moments where he's not with Shelly, where he's in present day and he's still dealing with that trauma. Those scenes are so well done and they're so well performed that it makes you feel this. You didn't, I could even argue, right, that you might not have even have to have seen Shelly in certain moments of this movie, which you don't anyway, but you could have maybe not seen Shelly at all. But the way that Brandon performs this in those moments where he's reacting to that pain and that trauma, it would still makes you go, wow, this guy had a love and a bond with this woman, and it's hurting him. He can't get over the fact that she died so tragically. You know, the fact that, as you said, when he sees, her final hours, he sees the fear, he sees the pain, and we feel that through him. And it was just so beautiful. Whereas in the remake, yeah, you're right. Like, ironically, they spend so much time between the relationship between Bill Skarsgård's Eric and FKA Twigs's Shelly, but you don't feel that these are it feels rushed actually in some ways. It feels very
some reason
surface level. Yeah. It's really weird. And I think as well, like I really love as well this idea of, once again, like in the very beginning where you have the opening voiceover, like just this idea that they're presenting of a soul that's in trauma. I just really love that. And I don't feel like that was very much so explored in the remake, or at least I didn't feel it as much. Do you feel like anything worked in the remake more so, or was executed better than in the original?
Except for the violence, maybe, but that is probably more a sign of the times that we need more graphic shit right now.
Yeah.
Then back in the 90s, you could just shoot someone and that would be fine. But nowadays, we need a curb stomp in the opera or something.
Yeah.
But that's really the only thing. I think maybe the remake did the big villain a little bit better. Like Danny Huston's character. The original, I think Top Dollar, I don't think we needed him as much. He felt a little bit tagged on because you've got obviously the couple of guys that actually came in and assaulted them, and he's after them first. And Top Dollar is kind of like in the background. We know he's there.
Yeah.
But we never find out, unless I missed it. Like if we had found out that he was the one sending them to Eric to like teach him a lesson or something like that, then it would have been Eric trying to kill the guy at the top of the food chain, right? But he was just a guy. He was somewhere in the background who had nothing to do with this. Whereas Danny Huston's character is like, he felt a little bit more involved. So when he does go after him, Bill Skarsgård's Eric, it feels a little bit more satisfying, I think.
Yeah, see, funny enough, I'm actually the opposite. Like, weirdly enough, I'm actually the opposite. I did not enjoy Danny Huston's villain. I felt that it was a bit cheesy. I didn't really, they never really like went into this idea that he kind of has some kind of supernatural powers. I felt that he was a bit boring, to be honest with you. Like, I never really got this idea that there was really this personal. I know that he is responsible, obviously, for the killing of Shelly in this movie, but I just never felt that. I didn't really understand his villain. Whereas I think the reason why I preferred, you said it was Top Dog or Top Dollar?
Top Dollar. I think Top Dollar, yeah.
Yeah, the reason why I actually preferred Top Dollar in the original version of The Crow is the fact that you do find out, like, he does reveal later on in the movie that, due to his whole, some kind of plan he has in terms of housing and basically trying to get people out of the building, that he essentially was responsible for that crew going into Shelly's home, because he says that, Shelly was basically trying to complain and say that this isn't right, what they're doing here. And so he essentially was responsible for those goons going into Shelly's home. And then
I missed that part then.
Yeah, because he says it in the movie. He says that, that Shelly was writing these letters, saying, and these notices saying that what they were doing in this building was wrong because I think they were trying to get people out of there. He was trying to take control of the building. And so he sends those goons on that night, at least to basically send her a message. And so I felt that that was enough for me. I love this idea that the gentlemen, including Top Dollar, but the rest of the goons, the ones responsible for murdering Shelly, those are the ones who are on his hit list. They essentially was doing two acts of injustice. One is that they were trying to get people out of their homes, and two, they murdered an innocent young woman who was trying to do right. And so I felt like that grounded it a bit for me because you then have sympathy for Shelly because she was essentially trying to do the right thing. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She's standing up to these goons who are trying to just have their way as this almost like this mafia vibe. And I just loved the idea that for me was enough. It was enough that I enjoyed seeing him going on this vengeance spree of taking them all out and having the satisfaction of taking them all out. But at the same time, we then, I'll link not to fast forward too quickly, but you link that to the end, in that final scene when they're in the church and he finally kills Top Dollar, you still see, even after he's wiped everyone out, even after he's killed everyone, he still is mourning. He's still in trauma. You see him slowly crawling to the gravesite of Shelly. And even though this has happened, even though he's took out vengeance and taken care and killed everyone who killed the woman he loves, his soul still hasn't rested. He's still mourning and in trauma until Shelly arrives in, I guess, ghost form. And that was a beautiful scene, by the way. I thought that was beautiful to see him slowly crawling. And, even though he's did what he thought would help bring him closure, it hasn't. And he's still suffering in that moment. But you see Shelly approach. And that's just a beautiful scene between the two of them where you see the relief on his face. You see that in that moment, his soul can finally rest because he's with her again. And I thought that was absolutely beautiful. I don't think there was not a scene or a moment in the remake of The Crow for me that came even close to that. It was just beautiful. And especially then you then have the closing voiceover from Sarah where, she says, that love, is the one thing that lasts forever. And I thought that it hit, man. Like it really hit. I thought that it was a beautiful scene. And once again, like a huge shout out to Brandon Lee. Obviously, God rest his soul, a real tragic passing, obviously in this movie, accidentally shot and killed, by accident with obviously the prop gun on set. And so, but a beautiful, talented performer. And, he's like similar to Heath Ledger, where you do wish, I wonder what, you would have done and could have done, after that. But I think even more so, his legacy just through this performance and what he did in this movie, and ultimately, giving his life ultimately for this movie, I think his legacy will last forever. And, kudos to him and kudos to everyone involved in making the original. The remake, that was the crocker shit. I mean, I'm sorry, man. Besides the John Wick style fights, and once again, like we made this joke the other day. I was making this joke. Like, where was the white paint? Like, it was in need of the white paint, and that's something I'll say about this whole movie. In need of some more white paint, just better. But the legacy of the original lives on.
Yes. So, like with Brandon Lee, I loved his performance as well. I think he's just, and to think I read up on it afterwards, and to think that he wasn't actually the first choice, so they actually didn't want him that much. Okay. But he was just amazing. I think he brought the intensity to it when he kills these gang members. But there was also a vulnerability, like a softness as well. Like I loved his scenes between with Albrecht, Ernie Hudson's character. It's just a wonderful range of things that he gave us. So like I love that moment as well when he the slightly more jester moment with Albrecht when they're on the street and he like bows to him, and that was a beautiful moment as well. Just these like little choices like that that work for me and make this character a little bit more beautiful.
Yeah, like even you made like you said about making this character more beautiful, and I think that immediately for me springs to mind, even in the original, Eric's scenes with Sarah. This idea that, Sarah is this, girl where her mum is a woman of the night and, she is not exactly involved in her upbringing. And, Shelly and Eric were two people who took care of her. And so, she feels very lost and abandoned, knowing that they've gone. And this idea that Eric is trying to stay away from her. He's trying not to, at first, not make, come into her presence, but he can't help but come and support her and give her guidance because she's looking for it. And you have that beautiful scene, for example, where she goes into the building of where they were killed, and she's looking for him because she knows that, it is him, that he's the crow, that he's back. And he tries to stay away, but then he appears and, he gives her a hug and, says that, he'll never leave her, and it's just beautiful, really beautifully done. And you really felt, even the idea, that she listens to his music, and he's sending little signals through his music. And also, so one thing I want to point out is also the use of the crow itself, the actual crow. One thing I will point out is I wasn't too keen on the idea that when they shot the crow, that meant that Eric kind of lost a bit of his powers. I thought that was a bit like, yeah. But
I bought it because he does need a weakness. He does need something.
Yeah, he does. You're right.
Like in the new one, he's basically just overpowered, and it's like, what are we even fighting here?
Yeah.
So yeah, I did appreciate that he's got a little bit of kryptonite there. Yeah, you mentioned Sarah, and I think that was what the remake was missing. Just these human characters. Because like we get introduced to Sarah very early on, and then obviously Albrecht comes in as well. And we spend a lot of time with the mortal side of the world, basically. But I think it's through Sarah and through what Eric and Shelly meant to her that we kind of go, okay, now Eric and Shelly mean something to us as well. That's, I think, Sarah as an entry to that. And we didn't have that in the remake. So there was never a moment for us to go, oh, we like Eric as well now. Which made it much harder to like connect to this couple and to Eric specifically.
I agree. No, I do agree with that. And I think the one thing I'll also say as well that the remake was missing for me is style. I think like, where was the guitar? Where was the electric guitar?
The rooftop guitar?
Where was the rooftop shots? Where was the scenes of him in rain with the long hair and the face paint? And like, it has a style and flair to it that is it's so stunning. Like it's so beautiful to watch. It's scary. It's riveting. Like it has a style and flair, the way it's shot, the color palette that just really works. And I think that, when you look at the remake, I think that you can argue that, if you're going to remake The Crow, there's multiple ways I guess you can tackle it. And in some ways it felt like with the remake, maybe there almost was like more of a realistic approach to it. When I say realistic, a bit more of a modern day Dark Knight-esque approach, so to speak, and it just needed more flair, man. It needed more style. It didn't have that. Yeah, maybe a bit more comic book. And I mean, I guess the final question I'll end with for you before we give it our review scores, or both movies our review scores. Would you be up for seeing another remake of The Crow later on down the line? No?
I think I'm good. I'm all right with like Crow remakes. Like it's these like iconic films of the past. I don't know if we need to rewatch that or we need to redo that. It's leave it. Let it rest.
Rest in peace to Brandon Lee. I mean, I would say I'll be up for it. I would be up for it if, you got the right director, the right style. I'd also be willing to see it maybe in animated form. I think that could be really interesting if they did it.
Actually sounds good.
Yeah, that could be really interesting. But I think, as you said, I think part of the legacy of this movie, of the original, is that it does hold up. It does stand the test of time. Long may it stand the test of time. And yeah, just a beautiful movie. Once again, rest in peace to Brandon Lee, and kudos to everyone involved for, creating a classic that will stand the test of time, I'm pretty sure. So we're going to give our reviews now. Obviously, we have a new IC score rating where we give our movie a certain amount of ices, slushies, whatever you want to call it. Tango Ice Blast, but we call them ices out of 10. So we'll start with the remake of The Crow. How many ices out of 10 would you give this on your review score?
I would give it a 4. I would give it a like moldy little 4 ices out of 10. Because yeah, it's just if you don't buy the love, then you don't buy any of like the revenge and why he came back and why he's even doing all this. So I've felt flat very much, and even the violence, like the fun violence, couldn't rescue it enough.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 3 ices out of 10. I was gonna give it 4 until I saw the original. So now it's gone down for me. So I'm going to go with 3 ices out of 10. So you're going with 4 ices out of 10. I'm going with 3 ices out of 10 for the remake. Now on to the 1994 classic. How many ices out of 10 would you give it?
Oh, I was thinking 7, but that was mainly because of the villain. But now that you reminded me or explained to me that he actually did play a role in like that whole story, I will give it a solid 8. I think it was really enjoyable. It was like as a comic book film, it did exactly what it wanted or what it needed to do. The main character, like Eric, was awesome to watch, and Brandon Lee was awesome. I believe the love. I thought it was stylish, cool, and just angsty as well, which was fun sometimes. Just like the melodrama, the melancholy. Sorry. So yeah, solid 8.
Yeah, and I'm going to go one up. I'm going to give it 9 ices out of 10. I think that this movie is incredible. Oh, it's stylistic. It's cool. It's fun. Long live the white paint. 9 ices out of 10. I thought this was absolutely phenomenal. So you're going with 8 ices out of 10. I'm going with 9 ices out of 10 for the 1994 original. So ladies and gentlemen, that will do us for our review of both the original 1994 version of The Crow versus the 2024 remake of The Crow. Thank you so much for tuning in to us today, guys. We are No Drama, Just Movies. If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe. We really appreciate it. We give you weekly movie reviews, current movie cinema releases, as well as cult classics, and we will probably delve into discussions, big news and talking points in the world of TV and movie, of course, movie news. Once again, my name is Cameron Kelly Smith. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague.
Oh, Kaka!
That's right. Kaka is right. We're going to go on right now and put on our white paint. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. We are No Drama, Just Movies, and we will see you very, very soon. Take care, guys.
Bye.